Hello, my name is Janelle Van Dusen with the League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator for this virtual candidate forum. Even though we miss seeing everyone in person, we are reaching more people via Zoom who can hear directly from the candidates to help make this important decision on the ballot. If you have any questions, please look in the chat box to find out how to reach us. The League is proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties, but always working on vital issues of concern to members and the public. I'd like to thank our co-hosts and allow them to introduce themselves. First, we have Sarah Becerra from Women's March San Diego. Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Sarah Becerra, Vice President of Women's March San Diego, and we are so honored to be co-presenting this event with the League of Women Voters of San Diego. This is going to be a really important conversation, and California's recently appointed Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, has been a longtime advocate for Women's March San Diego and has spoken on our stage many times, and we know that whoever follows in her footsteps is going to make a significant impact. So thank you all so much for being here for this educational session.
Thank you, Sarah. And another one of our co-hosts, Marina Beltran from Chula Vista Elementary Council of PTAs. Would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yes, I am the president of our Council of PTAs here in Chula Vista, and we represent 25 of our schools. And we want to make sure that we support this special election. We know how important it is to make sure that we are advocating for our children at all times. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marina. And last but not least, Carl Dimas from Sierra Mesa Community Council. Please introduce.
Yes, my name is Carl Dimas from the Sierra Mesa Community Council, and we're so pleased to be co-sponsors. This is not our first event with the League of Women Voters. We're just really thrilled and happy that they're willing to work with us, and we especially are excited about this new venue. So welcome everyone, and I think that you're going to enjoy this very special meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And thank you all of you for co-hosting tonight's event. And I also want to welcome our candidates, Marco Contreras, Aramik Glass Blake, Shane Suzanne Parmalee, Dr. Akila Weber, and Leticia Munguia. Our Voters Edge website is your online resource for more information about the candidates, ballot issues, and detailed voting information. All candidates for local offices have been invited to include their information there with no cost to the candidate. All of the candidates will or have included their information there. You will find a link in the chat to that site. The League moderates candidate forums using a format that is fair and informative. We ask that candidates keep to the issues of the position rather than personal attacks, because our goal is for voters to be able to learn more about the candidates than they get from campaign ads and social media. The views expressed are those of the candidates, not of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of the forum is not an endorsement by the sponsor or by the League for any candidate. We are recording the forum, and it will be available unedited from beginning to end to the public on our website, lwvsandiego.org. We asked attendees to submit questions online before the forum, but you may also submit questions using the link provided in the chat box. Please remember to use civility and respect in wording your questions and frame them so all of the candidates can answer. Assisting tonight are lead question screener Wanda Rogers, and from our host organizations, Kate Bishops, Marcy Shugart, Sarah Becerra, and Cindy McIntyre. Our timekeeper is Jean Widener, and our Zoom administrator is Kim Knox. This forum is for the District 79 California State Assembly. Again, participating tonight are the candidates Marco Contreras, Aramique Glass-Blake, Shane Suzanne Pomerly, and Dr. Akila Weber and Leticia Munguia. Candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 2 minutes for their closing, and 1 minute to respond to each question from the audience. We will cycle through who answers each question first in the same order throughout the Q&A. Prior to the start of the event, speaking order was determined alphabetically by last name. Aramique will give the first opening statement, and Akila will have the first closing statement. So Aramique, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you all for allowing me to be here today. My name is Aramique Glass-Blake, and I'm running for California State Assembly because I believe we need an independent leader, a public servant, someone who can move this state and this community forward. There are many people hurting right now. There are many people in need, and we need someone who puts politics to the side and leads with integrity, leads with equity, looks at everything through a lens of equity and justice. And that is what I'm committed to doing. I have been a community organizer, a conflict resolution consultant, as well as a public safety and criminal justice advisor. And I work throughout this state, throughout this community, to make sure that we build equity into every policy that we pass and to practice policy procedure change. And that is what I want to bring to California State Assembly, to the seat. I want to make sure that we pass legislation that our constituents can actually feel and touch and know that change is making and taking place on the state level. So I hope that I earn your vote. I hope you look me up, and I look forward to this conversation tonight that we're going to have. It's really important that everyone makes an educated vote and makes a vote for someone who will lead and be an independent leader and move our state forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Aramique. And Marco, your opening?
Yes, thank you so much for having us to share our views. You know, my name is Marco Contreras and running for State Assembly. I'm a husband, been married to my high school sweetheart for nearly 13 years. I love her more than ever. I'm a father of 2 kids that I love with all my heart, a 10-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl. I've been a pastor and I've been serving my community for 16 years, helping a lot of people. I'm a small business owner and I own 3 companies, and the 3 companies are running strong. You know, I think 2020 hit us all really hard. It shocked the heck out of us. And I think there's a growing number of people that feel the same way I do. Feel like the policies that we have in Sacramento are hurting our community, our state. Tired of the extreme lockdowns, taking away our freedoms, tired of the inconsistencies, tired of the injustices that our children are going through, when the science is clearly saying that our kids can go back to school and the school's still closed. Tired of California becoming an anti-business state and killing jobs. We need a change. You know, I came into the country when I was 16 years old, and I didn't know how to speak English. And I crossed the border daily. It would take me about 2 hours. And that taught me a lot. I came to fulfill my dreams. And the moment I set foot in this country, I fell in love with the people, the culture, everything about it, what America stood for, which is a country of freedom and a country of opportunity. So December of 2020, I decided that it was time to give back. And that's why I'm running.
Thank you, Marco. Leticia?
Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. My name is Leticia Munguia, and I'm a candidate in the State Assembly in the special election in the 79th. I was born and raised in Southeast San Diego. Both of my parents were immigrants from Mexico. I will share both of them were farm workers. And in 1971, they had the opportunity to purchase a home in Southeast San Diego where we've made that our home. I want you to know that I went through public education. I was the first in my family to graduate from high school. Then I went on to San Diego City College and received my degree there. I then had the opportunity to go to San Diego State, and I graduated from San Diego State with my degree in criminal justice administration. I started doing community organizing work because I had to give back to the community that gave me so much. I need you to know that I've been organizing in all the communities of color and mostly communities of highest need. I organized in Barrio Logan, in Sherman Heights, Southeast San Diego, City Heights, and National City. I'm very honored to have shared with all of you that I did affordable housing organizing under the Community Development Department for the MAG project. I then went off to law school. I secured my Juris Doctorate, and I've been back working every day representing working Americans to uplift our working families. I'm committed to running in this candidacy to ensure that we uplift our working families and we build a tomorrow that includes. My commitment has been to public education advocacy, building our economy, and making sure that we return to school safely, that we use data and science, and that we support our families as we get ready to reopen. And more importantly, that we work together in building a tomorrow that includes all. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you and sharing my story. I thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to being your representative in Sacramento come April the 6th. We have 27 days to make this happen. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. And Shane?
Hi, Shane Suzanne Parmalee. I'm a teacher, a single mom, and community organizer running to represent 79. I was born here in 79, and I'm raising a fourth generation in the home that my grandparents built. I'm running for state assembly because this would be a continuation of the work I've been doing locally and at the state level for the past 10 years. I've been teaching for 20 years, but about a decade ago, I realized I needed to get involved outside of the classroom in order to better support my students and fight to address the inequities that affect our communities. So I got involved in my teacher union, and this has led me to being elected at the local, state, and national level. And due to my extensive track record of getting work done on a wide range of issues, I'm endorsed by the California Teachers Association. Some of the organizing I've done or supported over the past 10 years includes organizing parents in San Diego to push back on the district's English learner policy, their plan that they hated. They successfully took a vote of no confidence. I organized to help break El Cajon's ban on sharing food with homeless people. I was one of the organizers for the Families Belong Together March and Rally. I showed up to help demand justice for Earl McNeil in National City. During the pandemic, when a couple years ago when I started dumping asylum seekers on the street, I helped organize food, housing, and transportation. During the pandemic, I've organized the delivery of over 200,000 pounds of nutritious food into neighborhoods hardest hit by COVID. And I've pushed San Diego to move our high-risk unsheltered neighbors into the empty COVID hotel rooms that are reimbursable through FEMA. And we could still be adding more people into those rooms. And I've done all of this on top of teaching full-time and being a single mom. I would like to take my work ethic, my ideas, and my ability to work collectively with a wide range of different people to Sacramento in order to get more work done for our community. And I think we have a great state. We have a lot of potential, and we just need to do a little more work to realize that potential. Thanks. Shane Suzanne Parmalee.
Thank you. And Akila?
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and also the other co-sponsors of this forum. My name is Dr. Akila Weber. I am a wife, a mother of two very handsome young boys, a local physician. I'm founder and director of the Pediatric and Adolescent Gynecology Program at Rady Children's. I'm a youth STEM educator, and I'm vice mayor of La Mesa. I've also been elected as a delegate to the 79th Assembly District for the last 4 years, and I also currently sit on the Rules Committee for the Democratic Party. I was born and raised in this district, and now I'm back raising my children. And as someone who's lived in this district for over 25 years, I'm intimately aware of our needs and our challenges. I know that we must improve our healthcare system so that every person in this district has access to quality and affordable care. We must close the academic achievement gap because every child deserves the right to have equal opportunity to thrive and a strong foundation to build upon later on in life. I know that we must improve economic security for all and all of our businesses, especially our small businesses. And we must continue to fight for equity for all so that every person in California can truly reach that American dream. We can achieve this together because I have a proven record as an elected official and as a physician of advocating, working across the aisle, and getting things done. I will fight for healthy families, healthy communities, and healthy California. Once again, my name is Dr. Akilah Weber. I'm running for the 79th Assembly District, and it would be my honor to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Now we will move on to the question and answer portion of the forum. Marco, you're going to go first. First question. What policies that Dr. Shirley Weber, former Assembly member, endorsed will you continue once elected?
Great question. I think it's no surprise that I've stated that I'm in full support of our law enforcement. But what I do support also is police reform to the extent of holding bad police officers accountable. And I would support AB 392, which holds police officers accountable. In fact, the first police officer will be disciplined under that bill is here in San Diego. And if he's guilty, justice must be served. What I'm concerned, though, most concerned about is the broader image that we continue to give to our police officers. I just don't think it's fair for the vast majority of our law enforcement that do a good job to just lump them in with the bad ones. But the way to build trust is to hold them accountable. So I will support that.
Thank you. And Leticia, the same question. What policies that Dr. Shirley Weber, former Assembly member, endorsed will you continue once elected?
Thank you. AB 392 has created a very important foundation, not just in the state of California, but across the country. You look at the premise and how the Legislative Assembly bill was enacted, it has created a standard review that has laid the foundation for the rest of the country. Dr. Shirley Weber, Assemblymember Weber, I must acknowledge needs to be recognized for this foundational in evolution in police reform. So I think for me, it's absolutely critical that work continues, but it has to be a comprehensive review of where the next evolution of police reform and where it goes. I support accountability. I support transparency. I support making sure that we have access to footage, body cam footage. But I also will say, secondly, that I support AC5.
Thank you. And next, Shane, same question. What policies that Dr. Shirley Weber, former Assembly member, endorsed will you continue once elected?
We need to bring back Prop 16 and try again. Prop 209 passed, it got rid of affirmative action here in the state of California. We're one of the few states that does not have affirmative action. It also killed bilingual education and did a lot of damage. It came, 209 came out of a very, racist time period of California. There was a push to, there was an anti-immigrant push. There was a lot of damage that was caused by 209, and we need to undo it. So we need to bring back Prop 16 until we get we get affirmative action back here in the state. It behooves us on a lot of levels in order to right the wrongs of the past and in order to create equity in our society so that we're not just having equal for everybody. So Prop 16.
Thank you. And Akilah, same question. What policies that Dr. Shirley Weber, former Assembly member, endorsed will you continue once elected?
Well, there are many things that former Assembly Member Dr. Shirley Weber did that I support. I agree, with the issue of police reform, Prop 16, reparations, cultural studies bill. But one of the things that, many people sometimes forget is that her background was very strong in education. And she taught at San Diego State for over 40 years. Her first introduction into the political arena as an elected official was as a member of the San Diego Unified School Board. And so the thing that she has honestly been fighting for the longest is equity when it comes to education of our children, especially for those who oftentimes don't have a voice. And when we look at the achievement gap and how it's continuing to disproportionately impact our Black and Brown students, those of lower socioeconomic status, it is critical that we continue to focus in on those students, because we all need to make sure that all of our children thrive and survive, and that California really is the opportunity for all. So thank you.
Thank you. And Aramik, same question. What policies that Dr. Shirley Weber, former Assembly Member, endorsed will you continue once elected?
So, Dr. Weber did an amazing job when it came to being really unapologetic in moving forward with criminal justice and public safety reform. And when it comes to AB 392, I was fighting for it on the city level, on the county level, and on the state level, going to Sacramento as well. And so on every level, I have been fighting for the policies that Dr. Weber put forth that I agreed with, and that was one of them. But also when it comes to equity in education and school choice, and I know we'll dig deeper into that, but those are some of the things that she has really been unapologetic in, and those are the areas in which I have been fighting for and will continue to do so on the state level.
Thank you. And now for our next question, Leticia, you'll start first. How would you address the state budget shortfall? What changes in state taxation policy would you endorse?
Thank you. So for the past 17 years, as a community organizer, a labor representative, I have been on the ground ensuring that we pass propositions that have supported our public education school districts across the state, K through 12, as well as community colleges. I have an accomplished record of making sure that Proposition 30 passed, that Proposition 55 passed, and most recently, not only did I gather signatures to get Proposition 15 on the ballot, but I worked to get the vote out for Proposition 15. Unfortunately, it failed. So my commitment in the community and in standing in support of public education is very well established. That's unequivocal. I'm a public education school advocate on the ground when it comes to finances, making sure we have the resources to ensure our children are successful. I will work forward to make sure we aggressively tax and close the corporate loopholes to support our public education system. Thank you.
Thank you. And Shane, you will answer next the same question. How would you address the state budget shortfall? What changes in state taxation policy would you endorse?
Yes, it was really unfortunate Prop 15 did not make it through, because we do need to close the corporate tax loophole so that corporations who have not seen an increase in their property tax like the rest of us do, we're paying their fair share into our general fund. I'm in favor of a wealth tax. The pandemic has created more billionaires than ever. No one needs billions of dollars. We are the 5th largest economy in the world, and 1/3 of our residents qualify for Medi-Cal because their incomes are so low. We need to revisit the way money is distributed by the people who are creating the wealth of the state. I would support a vacancy tax. People are sitting on empty properties as investments, and if they can afford to park their money and leave a house sitting empty, then they can pay a little bit more so that we can fund programs. And we need to revisit the longstanding tax credits that a lot of corporations have, and people don't even realize they have it, and see if those tax credits are still merited, because that's money that should be going directly into the general fund.
Thank you. And Tequila, same question. How would you address the state budget shortfall? what changes in state taxation policy would you endorse?
Thank you. So, COVID has definitely put a spotlight on all of the inequalities that have been out there for a while. And unfortunately, those have just worsened as a result of this pandemic that we're in. And so this is definitely not the time to have shortfalls in our budget, because we need to make sure that we are addressing the inequalities that we see within our healthcare system, within our educational system, making sure that we have the resources and we're able to give that to those that are most in need to deal with this learning loss that our children have had over the last year, and also to help our small businesses and residents get back on their feet. And so I definitely agree with having a wealth tax. Those at the top that are making the most definitely need to help and contribute out to society a little bit more than what they have been doing. And also closing some of the corporate loopholes, because again, we all need to contribute to make sure that everyone is thriving, everyone is able to survive in this society. If we all don't rise, then we will not be, then all of us will fall. So thank you.
Thank you. And Aramik, the same question. How would you address the state budget shortfall? What changes in state taxation policy would you endorse?
Definitely. So I think a lot of times politicians get into a position of power and special interests play a huge part. And I think it is dangerous in our most vulnerable time when everything was amplified around where our shortcomings already are and where people are most vulnerable and hurting the most. It is dangerous to cut spending around a lot of the programs and needs and even incentives and grants that people need at this time. So I do believe in a wealth tax. I do believe in really closing the loopholes. And I think if we start to get special interests out of politics, that will actually really truly take place. So that would be my top priority once at the state.
Thank you. And Marco, same question. How would you address the state budget shortfall? What changes in state taxation policy would you endorse?
Well, I think my approach would be completely different. I think the biggest test in leadership is running a business, because when you run a business, you can't allow for inefficiencies or incompetence. If you do, you go bankrupt or you lose everything. So as a leader in business, you have to learn to be quick to pivot, quick to change when things don't work. And when you make a plan on any level, you talk to your team, you roll out a plan, and you hope that it works. But if it doesn't work, that's when the true leadership comes. And it's when you recognize that it's time to pivot, time to change. And I think that it's time that in California, we pivot and we change. I don't support the increase in taxes because it hurts our hardworking people. It diminishes businesses. And what we need least right now is businesses fleeing California. We need more jobs, more opportunities, which gives the employees bargaining power to increase wages. Thank you.
Thank you. And for this next question, Shane, you will go first. What changes in state regulation on zoning would you enforce in order to expand housing options for middle and low income households?
All right, cut out there for a second. I just missed the first part.
Sure, no worries. What changes in state regulation on zoning would you endorse in order to expand housing options for middle and low income households?
So the issue with rezoning, usually, and I've seen some of the bills come out and it seems like a great idea, but what they are in essence are upzoning giveaways to people who already own property. And there's no requirement to have the inclusionary lower income housing into the properties when they're redeveloped. And so I'm in favor of looking at some of the bills that are going through right now. They're great, but the bigger picture is there's no enforceable mechanism that will require the building of the lower income housing units that we so desperately need statewide, but we need them in San Diego. Every area has the regional housing needs assessment or allotment and allocation, and it's not currently enforceable, and there's no penalty if you don't follow it. So we see these developments over and over again pay the little pittance of a fine, and we need to make it actually enforceable or have some teeth behind it so we get the housing that our low-income people need.
Thank you. And Akila, same question. What changes in state regulation on zoning would you endorse in order to expand housing options for middle and low income households?
Yes, thank you for that question. So what I would actually support is actually loosening up some of the regulations to allow for local governments to be able to more easily change some of their own zoning requirements. You know, as an elected official, you know, I think, you know, those of us that are working at as a city council member in the city of La Mesa know our area much more than, you know, any state legislator from a different area or from a different district. And so really giving the local leaders the opportunity to say how they're going to meet their RENA numbers. And yes, there should be some kind of enforceable method to make sure that they are meeting the requirements that have been laid in front of them. But they know best their area, and they know best where the zoning area should be changed. And so I would actually support policies that actually give more authority to the local legislators, because again, they know their area, they know their district, they know their needs. And so that's how I would improve that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Aramik, same question. What changes in state regulation on zoning would you endorse in order to expand housing options for middle and low income households?
So, you know, I think when it comes to zoning, I have to say that I believe that there should be a standard, just because in advocating and working on the city and county level, and you know, there's many cities that encompass within the 79th district, we need to set a standard, because when we have left it up to local leaders and politicians, depending on whose pockets they are in, that is what our policy and zoning end up looking like. And so I think we really need to set on the state level, set a standard and an equity a standard to make sure that we're getting the zoning needed and the housing built that people can afford and be able to have access to.
Thank you. And Marco, same question. What changes in state regulation on zoning would you endorse in order to expand housing options for middle and low income households?
I think common sense tells us that government is not the solution to our problems. In fact, government is the problem. We've tried as a government to solve the issue of housing, and we're not succeeding because, and it never will. There's three main issues with housing, and it's one of the biggest crises in California. Matt Levine came up with a great article on Call Matters. Number one, there's 150,000 homeless in California. Number two, there is 7 million people that fall into under the poverty line after housing costs monthly. There is then the people that are trying to save for a house, and it's hard to save because the rent is so high. Now listen to this. In Riverside, they did a mandate to build 30,000 homes, and not one developer signed up because of the highly regulated market. We need to give the industry to the private sector, build more homes so the price of homes can lower in California.
Thank you. And Leticia, same question. What changes in state regulation on zoning would you endorse in order to expand housing options for middle and low income households?
Thank you, everyone. Well, you know, as an affordable housing advocate, community organizer, there's some crown jewels in our community that were developed by the MAC project, which was one of my prior employers when I was in my 20s. I support affordable housing. Low and moderate income affordable housing is absolutely critical for our working families. Our community members that are working within their communities is absolutely critical. So what I support is we need to build housing. We need to have a housing supply. We are costing folks out of the city, out of the county, and it's absolutely critical that we look at incentivizing and offsetting the costs. So these are the following options that I would bring as an assembly member. First and foremost, increased density. Secondly, I would include incentives to include parking and design waivers. I would also focus on zoning variances. I would look at tax abatements, fee waivers, and expedited permitting. Those are critical pieces that would allow for us to move housing forward.
Thank you. And for this next question, we'll start with Akila. How do you think the state should support undocumented families who are contributing to our economy as farm workers, health workers, and domestic workers?
Thank you for that question. You know, they, like you said in the question, they are contributing to our society. They are members of our society. They are helping our society thrive and flourish. They are providing the food that we eat on the table. They are, you know, helping us watch our children during the day. And so we need to treat them as they are, our neighbors, our fellow brothers and sisters. And so I do believe that they should have access to quality healthcare, that they should have access to quality education. They are very vital members of our society. And so we should bring them in and treat them as like I said, as our neighbors, and work with our counterparts that are working on the federal level to finally implement some significant immigration reform. But these, you know, these immigrants are vital members of our community, and our community would not be as thriving as it is right now without them. So thank you.
Thank you. Aramik, same question. How do you think the state should support undocumented families who are contributing to our economy as farm workers, health workers, and domestic workers?
So I think part of your question answers that. Like, we should be supporting them the same way we support our citizens. And the reason why is if you are contributing to our state and to this country, then you should reap the benefits of that. And being a person who has worked on the front lines with our immigrant community, I believe that, you know, our pathway to citizenship is important. And some of the issues that we're running is we don't have enough case managers to do the processing. We don't have enough judges. And so we need to work with our federal officials to really make sure that we are working on immigration reform. And we also need to deal with our deported veterans, because they have contributed to our community as well and fought for our country, and they should be brought back and given the benefits as well.
Thank you. And Marco, the same question. How do you think the state should support undocumented families who are contributing to our economy as farm workers, health workers, and domestic workers?
Yes, well, the first thing I would say is I support people coming into the country legally, and because it protects them. The studies are showing that 1 in 3 women that come into the country or try to come into the country illegally get sexually assaulted. And that is inconceivable. In 1 month last year, there was 20,000 children that were smuggled into the country. That is the biggest crisis, human trafficking, and that must be stopped. Now, in terms of people that are already in the country, I get why people want to come to this country. I came to this country with dreams of fulfilling an American dream when I was 16, because it's a country of opportunity. So people that are already here contributing, even though it's not a part of state law, I would support making a way for them to become legal and have all the benefits that we all have once they're already here. But we do have to have strong borders to protect the most vulnerable, our children and women and children.
Thank you. And same question for you, Leticia. How do you think the state should support undocumented families who are contributing to our economy as farm workers, health workers, and domestic workers?
So for me, the Assembly District 79 is a mirror of California. And the richness of our 5th largest economy, the fact that we bring so much diversity should be what brings us together, and that we build a future for all moving forward. That includes every single employee, every single worker, every single farm worker, essential service worker, childcare provider, they should have access to resources as they're a critical fabric of our community. The fact that they have dedicated their time, their service, their contributions, they in fact should have equal access as they have equally been contributing to our taxation. That's education, that's healthcare, that's medical treatment, any potential resource as they have contributed to our society.
Thank you. And Shane, last question, the same question. How do you think the state should support undocumented families who are contributing to our economy as farm workers, health workers, and domestic workers?
So part of my teacher training program included a part teaching us that our undocumented students and their families are at a higher risk for being targeted for crime because they will not go to law enforcement for help for fear of deportation. So one of the things California absolutely has to do to ensure the safety of all the members of California is to provide privacy protections. We need to make sure that every single person in the state is able to go to law enforcement and seek help without fear of being turned over to ICE or Border Patrol. We need to, at the national level, National Education Association, we're pushing to support, there's plans for an 8-year pathway to citizenship for anyone who is here in the country as of January 1st, and a 3-year pathway for DACA recipients. And I support that. And we need to make sure that we have community healthcare clinics that are accessible to anyone in the community and everyone in the community. And then I have a teacher friend who's supporting farm workers out in Imperial County, and it is, farm owners should not be able to pay people so little they're homeless.
Thank you. And for our next question, Aramik, you will begin. What steps should the state take to help small businesses recover from the economic devastation due to the COVID pandemic?
So, as I've said many times before, you know, I have seen the devastation of small businesses and how people are hurting deeply right now. And business owners that definitely want to be able to pay their employees a dignified wage and keep them on and not have to let them go. So I believe that those who actually really truly need it, who have also been harmed in any kind of way during COVID, we provide grants and loans depending on their situation to help them get through this hard time and sustain themselves and sustain and retain and keep their employees intact. I think it is instrumental. I think when we talk about economic development, we need to talk about workforce development as well.
Thank you. And Marco, same question. What steps should the state take to help small businesses recover from the economic devastation due to the COVID pandemic?
Absolutely. Like I said before, I think California has become anti-business, and with the highest taxation rates, that doesn't incentivize people to start businesses, and it doesn't teach the younger generation that they can launch a business someday. We need to eliminate unnecessary regulations for our housing market so we can build more homes. 19,000 small businesses have permanently closed since the pandemic. It is time in California to pivot, to change, and become pro-business, pro-jobs. Like I said, more businesses attracting investment means more jobs, more opportunities, and actually more power to our employees. So I would support grants to launching small businesses like what we have in recovery of the pandemic. But truly, the best thing we can do for our small businesses right now in California is opening the state up. Our people want to get back to work and businesses want to get back to work. So that's what I would support.
Thank you. Leticia, same question. What steps should the state take to help small businesses recover from the economic devastation due to the COVID pandemic?
So where we are today requires some true leadership to ensure that we rebuild and we refocus and create a surge in our economic recovery. It's absolutely critical that our recovery is strong. Our small businesses require clear, dedicated attention, whether it's through loan forgiveness or whether it's through grants. It's absolutely critical that we have a different lens as we receive the additional resources that are coming to our local communities, that we additionally focus on fair, equitable distribution to small businesses in our communities where they have the highest level of impact, a highest level of need. We have seen numerous small businesses close, and that should be our priority of distribution of the incoming resources and supply to allow for a regeneration of our local economies that will create rehires and opportunities in our local communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Shane, same question. What steps should the state take to help small businesses recover from the economic devastation due to the COVID pandemic?
Well, we absolutely need to have targeted grants. So for existing businesses, but also for new businesses. And I believe we need some zero interest loans to be made available and then possibly do some loan forgiveness later, because people need access to money to transition, to update, to recover. I think we need to look at canceling rent. There's several businesses here locally that have gone out of business because the landlord kept charging them rent. And so we're losing long-term businesses due to rent charging. And I think we should also revisit the utility bills. It's not like SDG&E and Sempra are going to go out of business if a few people have their utility bill wiped out for some of the debt on that. I think we need to pause some mortgages and place those payments at the end of the mortgages and not collect interest in the time in between. And we need to continue direct cash payments to low-income people in the state so that they're out in the community spending that money and buying stuff at our small businesses.
Thank you. And Akila, the same question. What steps should the state take to help small businesses recover from the economic devastation due to the COVID pandemic?
Well, our small businesses really are the heartbeat of individual cities. They are what make each city unique. They provide jobs, but they also are the financial lifeline for our cities. And so this is something that we have been dealing with on a local level in La Mesa. And I agree with what the governor has done in his bill, where he has provided funding specific for small businesses and nonprofits. Also with the waiving of licensing fees, which we have also done in La Mesa. And I also agree that we need to make sure that we're going back and evaluating to see with the money that has been allocated, how much more is needed. Working with the local electeds, working with the local Chamber of Commerce and in the different areas to make sure that our businesses are getting able to be back on their feet. New ones are able to come, that it is distributed equitably, because this really is how cities and people will ultimately survive. Thank you.
And the next question will be for Marco. So going in a little bit of a different direction. So how will you obtain input from the constituents in your district and also stay in close communication with the district?
Oh, I love that. I've had several interviews and for endorsements and forums, and the number one thing I say is that I'm a person. My mom taught me, hey, think before you speak. And I've taken that into everything I do. I listen before I speak, and I listen before I make a big decision. Now, I would love to do community outreach as much as possible when in office. Let me tell you what we're doing right now. We're talking about the vaccine. We have a big problem and disparity with people of color. While the Latinos represent 32% of the population, only 17% of the vaccines have been given to Latinos. The Black community represents 5% of the population, and only 2% of the vaccines have been given to the Black community. So we do a lot of talking, but let me tell you what we're going to do. March 28th, we're going to have an outreach, California Vaccine Connectors at Victory Outreach San Diego, where we are going to have laptops, computers, so people can come and learn how to have access to the vaccine. The president said that people of color don't know how to use the internet, so I don't agree with that. So we're going to provide access to people to learn how to use, how to apply for the vaccine.
Thank you. And Leticia, same question. How will you obtain input from the constituents in your district and also stay in close communication with the district?
Thank you. So for me, it's creating an infrastructure, I will share this. For me, it's reaching our local nonprofits, our small business owners, connecting to our existing community organizations that are doing outstanding work in providing resources and services, plugging into our educational coalitions, making sure that my staff team, myself, are accessible, available, and on the ground. It's absolutely critical that we have a real pulse on our community. Assembly District 79 is really broad, right? We have Otay Ranch, Chula Vista, National City, Lemon Grove, La Mesa, right? And we cross over on the 52 over to Mission Valley. Then we have over Linda Vista by USC Community. And I will share with you, for me, it's making sure that we have a robust communications team that's responsive, that's engaged, that's on the ground. As a community organizer, it's making sure that you have a real pulse on the community that you represent. I'm happy to do that and champion for our community in Sacramento.
Thank you. Shane, same question. How will you obtain input from the constituents in your district and also stay in close communication with the district?
So I would continue to do what I've been doing for years as within the teacher union, within labor council, within being a community organizer and involved with my kids in school in the different school districts. So showing up and talking with people and listening. You know, there's, in addition to Democratic clubs, there are also a lot of civic organizations, nonpartisan groups, community planning groups, and people get together and they share their information on a regular basis. You just need to show up. I have a track record of going to more meetings than anybody knows how I get to all of them, and now I attend more because I'm on Zoom. And so continuing to provide an internet-based way to communicate with constituents is great. A lot of people now know how to do it. Having a local staff that is from the community, that's already embedded in the community, and talking with rank and file, normal, everyday people, not just elected local leaders.
Thank you. And Akila, same question. How will you obtain input from the constituents in your district and also stay in close communication with the district?
So one of the things that I really enjoyed when I ran for La Mesa and City Council were our community coffees, because that allowed me to really get out into the different aspects of La Mesa and hear about and talk to the residents and hear about, you know, their dreams, their hopes, their frustrations. And I continue that even after and elected, so that I can continue to keep my pulse on the community. And so having that interaction, you know, being there, boots on the ground, is something that I definitely believe in and would definitely continue. I'd make sure that my staff was from the district, knew the district, and when I'm in Sacramento, is definitely attending all of the events that are going on in the district, and making sure that the events that we hold are distributed equally throughout the district, so that I'm able to see and hear and touch and talk to all of my constituents. And of course, continue the relationships with the local leaders and the local organizations, the community organizations, to make sure that everyone's voice is being heard and that I am representing everyone's voice. Thank you.
Thank you. And Aramik, the same question. How will you obtain input from the constituents in your district and also stay in close communication with the district?
I think, you know, one of the things I always tell people, you know, in success of many campaigns and initiatives that I've either led or been a part of, that success has come through building and creating coalitions, and making sure I'm always connected to the community and connected to the voices of the voters. And when I say community, I'm not just talking about the Black community. I'm not just talking about, you know, right now, myself and Lorena Gonzalez is working on a Black and Brown women's coalition. But, you know, I'm not just talking about people of color. I'm talking about different backgrounds, religions, and bringing all of these different people together with different perspectives. Our district is one of the most diverse districts in the country. And I recognize that. And I've always worked in that capacity. And that is why we have been able to be very successful and actually get things done.
Thank you. And Leticia, the next question, it's probably top of mind for a lot of parents. What is your opinion on the pace and policies that the state should support to reopen schools as the COVID pandemic begins to subside?
So for me, what this last year has taught us is that I know there's a lot of eagerness to return to in-person instruction. And as a prior representative supporting our school employees, I have to share with you that my commitment has always been to go back to the folks on the ground. As a representative on the ground representing the workers at San Diego Unified, and also later on as an advocate throughout Southern California, it's absolutely critical that we have the staff on the ground to be responsive to the on-site needs at each and every one of our schools. We have to have appropriate and sufficient staffing, custodians, food service workers, folks that are able to provide the rapid response services that we need to ensure that our schools are safe, that we are able to ensure that our students, this is something I'm very committed to, that our students should keep their Chromebooks, materials, hotspots to ensure that we can their educational equity.
Thank you. And Shane, same question. What is your opinion on the pace and policies that the state should support to reopen schools as the COVID pandemic begins to subside?
Well, you're all sitting in my classroom right now. This is where I've been teaching this year, is my kitchen, which is great because I can get a cup of coffee or a drink of water. But this is absolutely not where I want to be teaching. I and everybody else I've already gotten my first vaccine and I'm looking forward to getting my second. My opinion is that the pace should be slow and steady wins the race, and the policy should be safety. We want to not be jumping in and opening the schools and then having to shut them back down because now suddenly we have to have people quarantining and then we're reopening them again. And now we're shutting down again because it creates this instability that is really stressful for the kids. It's stressful for everybody involved. So I support the three pillars of we need low community spread, we need the opportunity for full vaccination, and we need the safety mitigations in place of air quality, testing, masking, distancing, airflow. And we need to, spend the money to do it. Like, yeah, that's it. We want to get back to school.
Thank you. And Akila, same question. What is your opinion on the pace and policies that the state should support to reopen schools as the COVID pandemic begins to subside?
So as I stated at the beginning, I'm a mother of two young boys. They're in elementary school, and we're very active also outside of the school during extracurricular activities as well. And so I get it. I understand the desire to go back. As a physician who focuses on adolescent females, I see the uptick in depression and anxiety that we've had over this last year. And so I understand it, and I am very sympathetic and empathetic to everyone's needs. But I do want to make sure that when we go back safely so that we don't end up putting any of our children or teachers or other school workers at harm, and that we don't end up closing. And so I support making sure that we've got adequate PPE, the infrastructure as far as airflow is adequate to decrease the transmission of COVID, and that we either have vaccine or mass testing. And to be quite honest with you, every district is going to look different because every district has its own challenges and a different number of students. And we also have to have grace for people who are not ready to go back because of their concerns. And so continue the option of distance learning for those particular families. Thank you.
Thank you. You are listening to KNSJ 89.1 FM Descanso, serving the greater San Diego area, also streaming live on knsj.org. And back to the panel. Aramik, the same question. What is your opinion on the pace and policies that the state should support to reopen schools as the COVID pandemic begins to subside?
So I think one thing that we are really good at doing on a national level and on a state level is prematurely operating. And when you prematurely do things fall through the cracks and it crumbles. And I think this opening, closing is detrimental in many ways. And so I believe that we definitely, and I've been a huge advocate of wanting to open up. I have a 14-year-old sister that I share responsibility with my dad. And at her school, Grossmont, they opened up what I believe prematurely. And I just got an email that there is another COVID case. And so I believe that we need increased ventilation. We need to make sure we are testing and retesting. We need to make sure we have portable air filters. We need to give PPE, and we need to make sure that the schools have equity in regards to how these things are being handled and distributed. So I'm a big advocate of opening up, but doing it properly the right way.
Thank you. And Marco, same question. What is your opinion on the pace and policies that the state should support to reopen schools as the COVID pandemic begins to subside?
I think we have to follow the science, and the science has been clear. The CDC on February 3rd said that the schools can safely reopen. Mark Galey, the director of the California Department of Health, just came out saying that the schools can safely open. He also said, not only can they open, they should open. Now, Janelle, you're not the only parent that feels like that. There's 89% of the parents in the San Diego Unified District said that they want their kids to go back to school. So here's a question I have. If the science is really clear in saying that the kids can go back to school, if the parents are so clear in saying that they want their kids to go back to school, if the kids want to go back to school because of the suffering of anxiety, depression, and even thoughts of suicide, why are the kids not in school? The answer is politics. That's why we need change in California. We can't have more of the same. We need to have effective leaders in Sacramento that can deliver for the parents and the hurting children of our district in our state.
Thank you. And for this next question, it's a really good question. Shane, you're going to go first. One of Dr. Shirley Weber's most influential bills was AB 392 about police reform. Do you support AB 392? And if so, do you think it went far enough?
So I supported AB 392. I wrote it down wrong. Sorry, my kid's getting a drink. And I think the first version, right? That was the one that kind of got gutted and watered down. So I supported the first version. And I don't know what else to say. Yes, I supported it. And we need to go back to the first version. I'll just yield my time.
Thank you. And next, Aquila, same question. One of Dr. Shirley Weber's most influential bills was AB 392 about police reform. Do you support AB 392? If so, do you think it went far enough?
So I definitely support AB 392. And I think that was a monumental first step in the overarching necessity for police reform. And so now the question is, how do we start to tackle some of these other issues that we still need to address, such as decertification, which was a bill that unfortunately died on the Senate floor. It was Senator Bradford's bill, but has been reintroduced this session to make sure that when I consider rogue cops that do these things are able to be evaluated and decertified. How are we addressing the issue of release of information for police officers who have certain certain types of misconduct? That's what helped us out in La Mesa, Senator Skinner's bill, to be able to be transparent to our citizens. But that bill still needs to go a little farther. And so AB 392 was a great first step, but there's a lot more steps that we need to do in the realm of police reform. Thank you.
Thank you. Aramik, same question. Do you support AB 392? If so, do you think it went far enough?
Not only did I support it prior to it getting watered down, I advocated for it. I lobbied for it, and there's not many things I lobby for. And I really fought to make sure that we got buy-in from the city level, the county level, and the legislators that would be voting on it. I think, and I've said this many times before, I think we have to really look at the funding and how politicians are being funded, especially when it comes to police unions. When we take police unions and police associations out of politics, I think we'll be able to really truly pass some legislation with teeth that will actually transform our criminal justice and public safety system. But I do believe, as Akila said, that it was a first step, and it was historic in many ways.
Thank you. And Marco, same question. Do you support AB 392? If so, do you think it went far enough?
Yeah, I fully support it. It only using force when necessary. I think is the right thing to do. And what I was saying before, what concerns me the most, though, is the broader image we're giving to our police officers. We need to focus on bringing unity. And one of the cornerstones of my faith is reconciliation. It is in the best interest of our community, our state, our district, to bring our people together, bring the police officers, bring people that feel bad about police officers, and having a conversation. Conversations are so powerful in bringing people together. So I do support it. I think we need to work together to allowing and teaching our younger generation that it is in our best interest to respect our police officers.
Thank you. And Leticia, same question. Do you support AB 392? If so, do you think it went far enough?
Yes, I support 392. As a labor leader, as a social justice activist, everyone needs to be part of this conversation. As part of social and criminal justice reform, it is absolutely necessary that we stay in constant discussion, assessment, and that we move forward together. It's absolutely critical. Today, I share with all of you that I stand in solidarity with the House of Representatives, a bill that was passed, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It's a step in the right direction to continue our national discourse and our national discussion about police reform. I think it's absolutely critical that we have every single stakeholder at the table making these decisions. And today I want to give a commendation recognition to our Escondido Police Department, who today, there was an article in the paper where they made a step in the right direction to de-escalate situations involving excessive use of force.
Thank you. I think we have time for probably 2 more questions. Akila, you'll go first. How about this? The 79th is a large and diverse district. In your opinion, what are our district's biggest problems, and how would you address them as a member of the State Assembly?
Well, thank you very much for that question. The inequities that exist within our district, I believe are our biggest problems. And that's why when we look and we see who has been impacted the most from this pandemic, you see it's our Black and Brown communities, you see it's our communities of lower socioeconomic status. But then when you look even deeper, you see these are the same communities that are food deserts. So when we talk as a physician about diet, exercise, weight loss, they don't necessarily have that readily available in their communities. When we talk about access, not just having healthcare, but access to quality healthcare, oftentimes we have to leave the 79th in order to get those things. When we're talking about jobs and wages and environmental justice, we are dealing with that in a significant portion of our community, and also systemic racism. All of these things that impact the health of families and individuals and overall communities, we see a lot of those inequities that need to be addressed, and I will definitely address them, especially from a healthcare lens, if I'm elected. Thank you.
Aramik, the same question. What are the 79th's biggest problems, and how would you address them as a member of the State Assembly?
I think a lot of people are blaming a lot of things on COVID. And I think we have to truly be real with ourselves and say COVID only amplified the deep disparities and the inequities that already existed. So when we talk about education equity and making sure that our young people get a quality education, and that different schools and different areas are getting these different resources. And in order for us to get to equality, we have to go through equity. And so we need to be able to give our schools what they need and what is necessary right now. But then we also need to have real conversations around our unsheltered population, our housing, our people being priced out, and then also the price of education and the lack of workforce development, the lack of job readiness trainings, and really implement these programs in our communities. Thank you.
Marco, same question. What are the 79's biggest problems, and how would you address them as a member of the state assembly?
Well, our state is very diverse, and I think in our district, we need a leader that would speak truth, vision, and perspective. I came into the country when I was a young 16-year-old, brown, that hasn't changed, didn't know how to speak English, and with no housing. And that would put me in a place where most people would say I'm at a disadvantage. And I'm concerned about the extreme rhetoric of equity. Because what truly impacted my life was my parents speaking into my life and saying, Marco, you can do anything you want to do. You can become anything you want to become. Nothing can stop you. For every no you get, you're going to get 1,000 yeses. If we embrace the extreme rhetoric of equity, we will become victims of the system. And we need to tell our people of color that they can be empowered to break through the system, the system. Now, I have 2 children. 2 brown children. Guess what I'm going to say to them? The same thing. They can do anything, become anything, and go anywhere. Thank you.
Leticia, same question. What are the 79's biggest problems, and how would you address them as a member of the state assembly?
So my commitment is to representing the needs of Assembly District 79 when I get to Sacramento. My commitment is to continue to support and uplift our working families. I'm honored to share with all of you that the Latino Legislative Caucus has endorsed me in this race, and it is important that we continue the work that has been laid before us. For me, the economy needs to be hugely surged. We need to be able to create jobs. We need job programs. We have 120 job-ready capital projects that we need to have folks get to work. People want to work. But we can't get to work until we are able to reopen our tourism, our hospitality industry with our Unite Here Local 30 workers. Folks want to get back to work. They need access to the vaccine. We need COVID testing. We need PPE. We need safe, high quality childcare for our working families. We need to be able to reopen our community colleges, our CSUs.
Shane, same question. What are the 79's biggest problems, and how would you address them as a member of the state assembly?
The biggest problem is we've had this monster economic boom for the past decade, but it seems to have missed the majority of the people living in 79, no matter how hard they worked. We have inequity because of inequity in wages. Our wages haven't gone up. Our housing has gone up. Our electric bills have gone up, but the wages haven't kept pace. We have opportunity gaps all over the place. We have an opportunity gap with not having equal access to pre-K to preschool before school starts. We don't have the same amount of programming at schools based on your neighborhood. We have a district who's kind of snatched some funds and done district programs as opposed to letting those funds follow the kids to provide additional support services on campus. And I, at the state level, would target funds for do targeted funding for programs to create more opportunities, resources, and job training for skilled, high-paying jobs in 79.
Thank you. And I'm going to squeeze in one last question about the environment. How do you think the state can address the issue of environmental justice? And we will start with Aramik.
when we, I know Marco doesn't like this, but the word equity, when we talk about everything, I look through everything through an equity lens. And I have to be realistic, with our district being a district that is the most diverse. It holds and houses many people of color. And one of the things that has been happening is we've had to deal with so many other issues and injustices that we haven't really tapped into climate change and the environmental justice issue. And so one of the things that I truly want to do is bring educational programs and let folks know that are most vulnerable, that when things continue to go bad, we will be hit the hardest and the worst. We need to make sure that people are educated on why the environmental justice issues and climate change goals are so important, and put that at the forefront. And that's what I will do on a state level.
Marco, same question. How do you think the state can address the issue of environmental justice?
Well, I fully support policies that impact air pollution. And that is where the science is clear. And what I don't support, though, is unrealistic policies that would kill jobs. For example, what happened in Pennsylvania and killing 70,000 jobs because of stopping the pipe. And I believe in America, we have the cleanest oil in California. I think it's the cleanest oil. So I would support research technology with reasonable and fiscally responsible policies to make sure that our people can still work. And the truth is that we're going to need oil for a long time. So we just have to be very aware of the situation and make sure that we support our businesses and people can still work. Thank you.
Thank you. And Leticia, same question. How do you think the state can address the issue of environmental justice?
So as a way to start and frame the conversation, I think it's absolutely critical that it's acknowledged that our communities of color have been hardest hit by environmental justice and polluters. We have had to live with the consequences and also the medical complication issues by the polluters who have been unregulated and have not been held accountable. I think that's the honest conversation that must occur. Some of the areas that I would look at is deforestation. I would also focus on air pollution quality and addressing the last 50 years of unregulation. I would look at global warming. I would look at water and water cleanliness, water pollution issues that are impacting and have impacted our environment. And I will also look at natural resource depletion. I think it's absolutely critical that we look at our environment from a multifaceted perspective to ensure that we protect our beautiful environment for generations to come. It's also very critical that Assembly District 79 have sufficient green spaces.
Thank you. And Shane, same question. How do you think the state can address the issue of environmental justice?
The state can address the issue of environmental justice a lot faster if the Democratic Party would get fossil fuel money out of it. If they would stop accepting fossil fuel money, like they stopped accepting private prison contributions. Public utilities are supposed to be public. They're not supposed to be privatized for shareholders. So I think we need to increase the local generation and storage of energy. I think we need to have publicly owned transmission and distribution of energy. And I think we need to prioritize transitioning to zero emission vehicles in some of our port cities and different communities that we know are more heavily polluted, as a way to remove the pollution in the air from the heavy vehicle traffic in those areas. And I think we need to be more honest, Democratic Party, about who's donating to our campaigns and how it affects the legislation that we push.
Thank you. And Akila, same question. How do you think the state can address the issue of environmental justice?
Well, thank you for that question, because from a health standpoint, some of the health disparities that we see within our low income Black and Brown communities are a direct result of the environment in which they are exposed to. And so we must really make sure that we have green investments into these communities, That includes creating green spaces, building grocery stores that have affordable, healthy foods, building farther away from freeways and closer to transportation hubs, improving, of course, air and water quality. But one of the other key things is that we need to make sure that we are including the voices of the residents in these areas at the tables when the decisions are being made about what should or should not happen to their individual community. And finally, you know, we are moving into a green economy. And so we need to make sure that the residents in these communities are trained so that they can also participate in this new growing diverse field of employment. Thank you.
So thank you all. Before our candidates give their closing remarks, I want to thank you for attending and asking such good questions. If you live in the 79th, please be sure you are registered and you vote by April 6th for this special election. Also, please attend more League events where we give in-depth information on all sides of critical issues affecting our communities. And now for our candidates' closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes in reverse alphabetical order by last name. We will have Akilah Weber going first. Dr. Weber.
Well, thank you again for the invitation. My name is Dr. Akilah Weber, and my vision for the 79th is to have healthy families, healthy communities, healthy democracy, and a healthy California. You know, I've consistently served as an advocate for health equity, not only as a physician working with some of our most vulnerable girls and teens, but also as an elected official. One of my first things was to update our smoking policy in La Mesa to prevent the sequelae of secondhand smoke. I'm also on the county's COVID Health Equity Task Force to continually monitor and implement policies to mitigate the longstanding healthcare inequalities that we see playing out in this pandemic. I've worked to ensure that our La Mesa Climate Action Plan equitably impacts all of our residents. And as a member of the MTS board, I've worked on the public safety community to ensure that our most vulnerable are not immediately directed into the criminal justice system. I helped amplify the voices of our La Mesa residents with our concern for our homeless population, which led to the creation of an actual homeless action plan that we have in La Mesa. I've championed for small businesses even prior to the pandemic, taking some of my money to make sure that we establish a specific grant for West La Mesa to help out the businesses over there. And despite some of the efforts that have happened in La Mesa over the last 6+ years, it was not until I got on the council working with the residents of La Mesa that we were able to get a Citizens Police Oversight Board established with the powers to investigate all complaints, hire an independent auditor, and request for subpoena power and review all of our policies and procedures. I'm very proud and honored of all of the elected officials and organizations and community members that have endorsed my candidacy because they know me, they've worked with me, and they know that I can get things done. When I ran for city council in La Mesa, I promised to be the voice for all La Mesans, and I'm running for the 79th Assembly to be the voice for everyone in this district. I humbly ask for your support and your vote so that I can go to Sacramento and be your voice. Thank you.
Thank you. And Shane Suzanne Parmalee.
At the state level for CTA, the California Teachers Association, I serve on the Political Involvement Committee. And for the past 8 years on other committees, I've been closely following and analyzing state legislation and how it will affect our communities. I also follow the state budget because about 40% of the state's general fund goes towards public education. And I've reached a point with my lived experience and my practice through at the state level that instead of lobbying on legislation, I'd like to write legislation that will improve the quality of life and the opportunities available to our communities, as well as critically evaluate proposed legislation through an equity lens in order to amend it before it's finalized. In general, this past decade, California has had a booming economy, and it seemed to miss most of us here in '79. And in particular, this past year during the pandemic, there's been a lack of urgency in Sacramento when it comes to supporting the hardest working and most marginalized members of our communities. And I think that's because most of the electeds either do not know what it's like or they've forgotten what it's like to work your butt off and still struggle to pay your bills and provide for your family. The pandemic has proven how quickly our society would fall apart without essential workers. And unfortunately, it's proven how slowly Sacramento responds to supporting our out-of-work neighbors during a crisis. California is the 5th largest economy in the world. Mutual aid groups should not be responsible for holding our society together. And once I'm in Sacramento, I promise I will immediately write and support legislation that prioritizes the urgent needs of our community and work tirelessly to fight for us on all fronts. My name is Shane Suzanne Parmley. My website is www.shaneparmley.com. And please do your own research. You can check my track record. You can Google me. And thank you very much for paying attention to this election. I hope you reach out to your friends and neighbors and make sure that they vote too. This is one of those pieces of mail that kind of gets set down and walked away from. And participating in our elections is super important. Shane Suzanne Parmley, thank you.
Thank you. Leticia Munguia.
Well, thank you, everyone. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and all the co-sponsors for having us here tonight. My name is Leticia Munguia. I'm running for the State Assembly. We have 27 days to get our message out, and I ask for your support in this very critical election. I'm your first option on the ballot. My website is leticiamunguia.com. I want to let you know that as a first-generation American, first graduate in my family to graduate from high school, university, and secure my Juris Doctorate, I stand before you as a candidate for the State Assembly. That is the manifestation of many years of work, but more importantly, I want to take a moment and celebrate my mom's birthday today. Maria Elena Munguia, today is her birthday. And it's because of her and my father that I'm here before you as a candidate. So without any further ado, I just want to say happy birthday, Mom. Feliz cumpleaños. As we move forward in this candidacy, I think it's absolutely important that we focus our interests in rebuilding and moving our communities forward. It's absolutely critical. You have my commitment to stand up for education. You have my commitment to rebuild our economy. You have my commitment to ensure that our families have access to safe, reliable childcare services, that we support our students going back to community college, our CSUs, and our elementary, middle, and high schools. It's absolutely critical that we focus on creating training programs, new training programs, as we have gone through this pandemic. And more importantly, I ask that you review every single candidate on the ballot, and I ask for your support. This is a very important election, and it's critical that we have a labor advocate standing up for working families in Sacramento. I need you to know that I'm supported by many. However, it's most important that I share with you my AFSCME 36 family is standing with me in this very critical race.
Thank you. Marco Contreras.
Yes, thank you guys for having us. And, you know, as you vote for me, you're going to send to Sacramento a family man, a husband who's been married to his wife for nearly 13 years. And I love her deeply and I'm faithful to her. You're going to send a father who loves his children, spends time with them, and speaks into their lives, speaks vision because I care about the next generation. You're going to send someone who understands what it's like to struggle and start with nothing, and what it's like to be broke and live paycheck to paycheck. You're going to send somebody who owns a small business and understand what it's like to work hard and to have vision and purpose and to believe in himself. You're going to send someone who will be a voice for the parents that are tired of the injustices that we're experiencing in California. It's clear that we need change. You're going to send someone who will be a voice that represent people, the hardworking people of our district and the hardworking people of our state that just want to get back to work, that understand that the best stimulus we can get is getting us back to work. You're going to send someone who understands that the best way, the future of California is becoming pro-business, lowering taxation, and eliminating unnecessary regulations. You're going to send someone who believes that the future is bright for our younger generation, someone who will speak truth and speak vision to them. That's what you get when you vote for me. So you can visit my website on www.marcocontreras.us. You can also follow us on Instagram, Marco for California, and you get to learn more about us. And I always advocate for policies that promote freedom and power to the individual, not just government. I want everyone in my district to have the ability to fulfill their own American dream the same way I did. That's why I'm running. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Aramaic Glass Blake.
Thank you all for allowing me to be here tonight to have this important discussion. I think we always say we can't continue politics as usual. And so I would encourage you to stop voting in politics as usual. I would encourage you to vote for someone who is independent, who is unbought, who is unbossed, someone who has been fighting, someone who has been listening, someone who has been showing up every single time for your children, for your families, for the community, and for California as a whole. On every single end, I've worked throughout this whole district. I've given every city the same amount of attention when my name is called upon. And that's what I want to do on the state level. I want to be the independent public service leader to move our state forward. I will never stop fighting for us. And when I say fight, that also means building unity. But you cannot get to unity without first going through justice and equity. I sit on multiple boards. I work with the police every single day, but I also hold them accountable. I work with the politicians and the public servants, but I also hold them accountable. And when you vote, when you get your ballot, I need you to do your research. Find out who has been fighting for you. Find out who has been holding people accountable. Find out who you can trust, who is unbought, and make the best decision. Aramie Glass Blake, State Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. As a reminder, the views expressed are those of the candidates, not of the League of Women Voters. On behalf of the Women's March San Diego, Chula Vista Elementary Council of PTAs, Serra Mesa Community Council, and the League of Women Voters of San Diego, I want to thank the candidates for running for office and attending our forum this evening. And thank you again. You are here tonight because you are following the League model. Don't just be a voter, be an informed voter. All active registered voters residing in the 79th State Assembly District will receive a ballot in the mail. Starting March 29th, voters will have the option to leave ballots at a drop-off location. And if you need to vote in person, polling places will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day, Tuesday, April 6th. Thank you and good night.